Agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Carried. So first delegation is Dr. Lois Mangon from the Comox Valley Natural Society and Project Watershed regarding conservation of Baybrook House. So you're at the podium, you have 10 minutes.
10 minutes. That's much more than I'll need. Thank you for taking the time to hear this request. I hope it's going to be sufficiently simple. This is Baybrook. I put up a picture because I've noticed that in the course of correspondence and conversation, a lot of people do not know what this house is. It was the Mac Lang residence for best of 30 years, and he spent another 30 years at Shakeside. So, to begin with, let me ask you a question of common sense. If your doctor gave you an opinion telling you you're about to die, would you not recommend to your friends, or your friends would recommend to you, let's get a second professional opinion? Now, as a simple business move, that's what I did. Together, I called my friend Paul Horgan from Project Watershed, and he said, let's put together a professional committee to revisit this question and provide an answer pro bono. So this is the committee as it stands. There's myself as a professional biologist, Dr. Horgan as chair of Project Watershed and molecular biologist, Dr. Richard Mackey, who is our local historian, Martin Haggerty, who is an architect, and Frida Holm, who is a strategic planner, and I'm working on an engineer and an archaeologist. Now, the mandate of the committee is very simple. It's to provide a pro bono professional report of the heritage values, feasibility, and cost of restoring Baybrook, and to find funding to adapt it as a heritage viewing center commensurate with Comox Estuary's expected national historic status. The request, here, the request. The request is quite simple. It's simply that you as council table the decision to demolish Baybrook until after September 30th and provide an opportunity to review the proposed report from CV Nature and Project Watershed and the local residents committee. All right. The reasons for this are quite simple. Correspondence with Paul Ives indicated that there were clear errors of fact and misperception in the Council's understanding of the national, cultural, heritage, and economic values of Baybrook. The engineering report confuses the four dwellings for the lay reader, and it does not provide actual costs specific for Baybrook. And then demolition simply makes no good business sense. The environment is an economic engine, and we overlook it at our cost. If you haven't opened your newspapers this year, the last few months, Project Watershed, Dr. Horgan in particular, drew to the valley about $2 million. We at CV Nature do public tours. When we do a public tour, we never have less than 30 to 100 people. There is an appetite for environmental sanity and environmental and heritage values. Now, to illustrate the point, if this doesn't run away on me, we had, for 5 months in the valley, a citrine wagtail, a little bird. That little bird almost caused me to delist my phone number. That little citrine wagtail brought us 10 to 60 tourists per day for 5 months.
Oh, wow.
A conservative estimate of spending about, for 150 days, $250, would be $375,000. Let me rephrase that. That's a very conservative estimate. I've had an economist look at it, and he said, no, it's probably closer to $2 million. I'm a fiscal conservative. I'll stick to about $500,000. Now, people said to me at the time, that damn bird is a real impediment to traffic. I wish somebody would shoot it. That's short-sighted, and it doesn't take into account the return, the economic benefits that we all drew from this. And the same thing happens to heritage property. Now, as speaking as a biologist, there's a simple question here. When can you go in? When can somebody go into a DPA when there's an eagle's nest? Well, if I can point correctly, this is Baybrook, and this is the eagle's nest. That's about 40 feet apart. So, in principle, that nest will be active until between August 15th to 30th. So demolition can't occur until August 30th. Therefore, all we're asking for is a 30-day extension to do work pro bono for you, which could be of great economic benefit to the valley. Baybrook, it's built in 1923, and it's not simply the Stubbs House. This is the original building in 1935. As you can see, what was missing was the wing that the Stubbs added in the 50s. We're not interested in any of the other properties. The only one that interests us is Baybrook. Now, Baybrook is a heritage building because of the amount of history that went through it. And Father Charles Grant wrote to me and he said, "You got to do something. It's among our members who tells me what to do." And what he said is, Baybrook is where it all began. This was the period when, period from the 20s to the 50s was when Mac Lang was at the height of his powers. He was corresponding with, he was writing thousands of articles and letters, as Richard Mackey found out. And he was corresponding with just about every important naturalist in North America. So that site was a very important historic site. This picture is a kind of tell-all. You have in it Mac Lang. Oh, that's what happens when you use somebody else's pointer. Okay, this is Mac Lang. You have Percy Taverner, who worked for the National Museum and wrote the first compendium of Canadian birds. And you have, sitting on this corner, this young man, McTaggart Coward, who became the most prominent biologist in Canada, mammologist. And as a biologist, I can tell you that I would drool to get the McTaggart Coward prize, but I don't think I'll get it. Okay. These are the kind of people who came through, together with Alan Gross. Now, Baybrook and Philbrook Lodge are quite interesting because Mac Lang, the great environmentalist, was the next door neighbor of the great businessman, Bob Philbrook. And we should learn from this. They coexisted peacefully and respectfully with each other. And they coexisted in one very interesting place. They're joined by having both built their houses on the great Comox Smith, on the great Indian tradition. You know, this is actually quite unique as a Canadian site, educational site, that environmentalists and business can coexist respectfully. That is part of what we can build on in the preservation of this building. Now I'll call on my friend Martin Haggerty to talk about the architectural problems here. Thank you.
Is there any time left? You got about 3 minutes.
Really good.
You can do it. I know you can.
Yeah, I can talk fast. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Well, acting Mayor and Council. It's interesting. I was just talking to your planner next door, Gail, and she was saying that Comox, town of Comox doesn't have an active heritage process as they do in the city of Courtenay. You do have a designated building, which is Philbrook Lodge, and it's very interesting that a council originally did not want Philbrook Lodge to be as the way it is today. They wanted to build condos there and maybe just remove most of the property outside of a park. Now Philbrook Lodge is kind of the crown jewel of Comox Parks, and the Philbrook Lodge was saved because there was a champion, which was Alice Bowling, right there. And she made the effort to save it and made it the terrific thing that it was today. At the time, no one envisioned that Philbrook Festival or anything like that was happening. That was a product of a vision that several people held. And I think Lois is pointing out today, there's a vision here, and there's possibly a product. This building, I'm not going to comment about it architecturally, it's been added to. I don't think it has what I would call strong architectural values. However, as Lois pointed out, it has very unique heritage value. And I think it would be very important to evaluate it as he's described, and providing a service pro bono to understand what the scope of that heritage is and to detail it, and also to describe what the possibilities are to restore or use the building for public use. It's interesting that there is a heritage evaluation done for the town of Comox. I don't think it identified the Mac Lang house, but it was done about 1982. And one important quality of determining a heritage value for a house is looking at not its architectural quality necessarily, but who lived there and what their importance is within, say, a provincial, a local, or a national context. And I think Lois has made a very good point here that Mac Lang had those qualities on all three of those levels. And it would be really good to see that described in detail to allow to inform council and the public as to what could actually happen.
The timing is perfect. So, questions from council? Tom, go ahead.
Thanks, Martin.
I
I don't know if this is premature to ask, but because you guys are just trying to get your little steering committee together here.
exactly.
Would it be your intention to restore it back to its natural state before James added onto it and everything? Or?
We haven't had that discussion yet. I think that part of the evaluation would be to look at the original building plans, to look at how Mac Lang used the house, look at the photographs, to photograph the house, to talk to parks and talk about the long-term plans for Mac Lang Park. Is there already a consideration for some public building there? Is the site is a good site? You know, are there any environmental issues with the building? I would like to point out that just from a brief and I would say superficial review of this house, and I've never been inside it. I do know the Stubbs family quite well. I had a call yesterday from Dick Stubbs, who described all the additions and alterations and so on that have been made. But I can say that you would look. It's a possibility that you would look at it that way. And the point I was really going to make was when I did the heritage evaluation actually for the town of Comox, and I think it was about 1982. And there were several houses on Comox Avenue that were quite unique. There was the Fairburn house, which was owned by people who ran the Lord Hotel. And but the problem was is you have a single-family residence in a commercial zone. So it's very difficult because the proposed use or reuse of the building doesn't suit the zoning. It's very hard to preserve small buildings that are in zones that have changed to greater density. But the Baybrook House is in a kind of unique location where it's not threatened by development and it's not threatened by reuse. So you do have an opportunity to step back and say, well, is there a possibility here to use this building or in some way? Also, the building, when you look at heritage building restoration, I just did an addition to Philbert, to the Old House Restaurant, which is now Locals, right? And we built a little addition there, and we went to the Heritage Committee in Courtney, and they said, you know, we know you've changed the building, but other people have changed it before in the past. But what you've done is you've kept the building going. It's now a restaurant again. We now have a good restaurateur, a well-known chef, and it looks like it's really successful. So there are ways to look at heritage that are really flexible, not rather saying that it's got to look exactly as it did with the picture in 1935.
I wasn't suggesting that.
Yeah. But it's just one of several possibilities.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Barbara, I understand you had a motion. Now, if, normally we would look for a notice of motion, but I think most of the crowd is here to hear what your motion has to say. So if council is okay with it, we could proceed with your motion tonight. Everybody good with that? Okay. Go ahead.
Wonderful. So the motion is that council delay demolition of the old Stubbs house, formerly Hamilton Lang's Baybrook house, until the 30th of September to allow time for a community committee as suggested by Dr. Lyse, that's your name, to research and make recommendations on the feasibility of Baybrook House being restored as a heritage house and possibly wildlife centre, including funding opportunities which have minimal financial implication on the town of Comox's budget.
Anybody want to second that?
I'd second that.
And discussion? Nobody? All those in favor? Gary? And you're welcome to stay, but you don't have to.
You said it was going to send
Well done, Mr. Aki.
Sometimes as he said, we did the same shit.
Exactly. Yeah, that's not exactly correct. Thank you very
Something I said. I would have made it right some new business.
I thought about it. Okay, so we can carry on with the meeting. Our next delegation is Jim Agius regarding development permits and landscaping bonds, and he's here regarding 2310 Guthrie Road. You cleared the room for us, anyways. Go ahead, you got 10 minutes.
Mayor and Council, thank you for hearing me tonight. I'm here on this. My name is Jim Agius, by the way, and I'm here on the subject of development permit applications and their outstanding items. And I represent the property at 2310 Guthrie here in Comox. And basically, I'm just here to answer any questions. I really don't have a presentation per se in a sense, so I'm just going to make myself available for any questions.
Okay. Any questions from council? That was too easy. Oh, go ahead, Tom.
Jim, I'm sure you know that later on in the agenda, there's recommendations that we rescind the original development permit and change the wording in it too. So it's going to have an expiry date. I mean, right now it's being held up because you haven't posted the landscape on it, right?
Correct, yes.
And we're going to, the recommendation is that we rescind that, which means that your development permit will probably expire.
Within 2 years, that's my understanding.
But it will probably be retroactive to when it was, am I correct?
No,
Get some clarification.
The development permit is good from 2 years of the date of issuance, and that's part of the problem that we do have. The council resolution can be 2 years, 3 years ago. We then issue the permit, you have an additional 2 years from that date of issuance.
Okay. And we haven't issued it now because he hasn't posted the development bond because it's out in the outstanding items, correct?
Correct, and this is also one of the older permits where we said we didn't know that we can do that there's a way of triggering payment of the landscape bond at time of building permit. So the recommendation would allow for that, so that would allow us to issue the permit, and he would still not pay his landscape bond until such time as he came in for the building permit.
Okay, so are we changing the policy, or you just found I mean, it doesn't say in here that we're changing the policy, we're just rescinding the previous.
Yeah, we have started doing that already on our new development permits.
Okay.
And so this would just bring these into line.
Yeah, okay, I just wanted to make sure you understood what was going on.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have no questions.
Anything else from anyone? Thanks very much, Jim.
Thank you.
And our next delegation is Dane Human regarding same issue, and it's 1653 Comox Avenue.
Good evening, members of council. I'm Dan Human. It's to do with the townhouse project on 1653 Comox Avenue, corner of Comox and Stewart. Similarly to Jim, I'm here for exactly the same reason, to have the development permit issued now and the landscape plan made payable at the time the building permit is required. That would be of great assistance to us. There are some new councillors here, so for those who aren't familiar with the project, I'll just give a few photos for you to have a look if you're at all interested. And I'm available to answer any questions.
Okay. Well, you know, this is an issue that over the years I've heard from many people who are trying to do developments around town is problematic for them. So I'm really glad to see that we're actually fixing this and getting it better. It seems like you guys are on the same boat. So any questions from council at all?
Just a quick question, Your Worship.
Oh, that was hard for you to say, wasn't it?
It's not going on the record.
Live streaming video.
I understand that by making this change, it's not going to change any checks and balances for development there. So this is to help the process for the developers and also to maintain the integrity of what we want to achieve. So
That's my
that's
understanding.
correct, CEO?
Yes, it's definitely in line with council's strategic priority of streamlining the development process and making it easier for the developer to proceed with this.
It's just bad business to take a landscape bond on the issuance of a development permit, because I know of people who, you know, it could be 2 or 3 years. No, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, so your issue will come up later in the agenda. Okay. So we'll move on to minutes of meetings, and for approval, the minutes of the regular council meeting dated June 5th, 2013.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor? Carried. And we'll move on to special council minutes and the minutes of the special council meeting held in council chambers on Wednesday, May 15th, 2013 for approval.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor? Carried. We have no committee reports. There's nothing in unfinished business, so we'll move on to the management report for receipt.
Move receipts. Second.
All those in favor? Carried. We'll now move on to page 13 on the agenda, if I can find it in here. And that would be the rezoning application RZ 12-8, development permit application DP 12-5, development variance application DP 12-10, and that's for 560 Colby Road. And the recommendation is that bylaw number 1706 be given third reading.
I believe it's 1709.
Oh, 1709, sorry, that's my little dyslexic moment.
Move third reading.
And I'll second that.
And all those in favor? Carried. And, oh, sorry, we should have done discussion there, but everybody was in favor anyway. So. And number 2, that bylaw number 1709 be adopted.
Move adoption.
Second. And I think it was a public hearing where actually support, people, the Residents Association came out and support, and
Yeah.
people seem to be very happy. I think a lot of work was done on protecting the trees, and it seems like a good plan.
Yeah, my recollection was that there was a lot of support there, so. All those in favor? Carried.
Hold that up as a standard.
And we'll move on to B, which is the rezoning application RZ 12-8, development permit application DP 12-5, development variance application DP 1210 for 560 Colby Road. Geez, that's a mouthful. You guys could make that a little harder.
Move third reading.
Thank you.
Second.
And discussion? All those in favor? Carried. And then that bylaw number 1749 be adopted.
Move adoption.
Second.
And discussion. All those in favor? Carried. And then we'll move on to the development permit DP 12-5 be issued subject to the development permit conditions contained in Schedule 1 of the June 19th, 2013 planning report.
So moved.
Second.
And discussion. All those in favor? Carried. And that development variance permit DP 12-10 be issued subject to the development variance permit conditions contained in Schedule 1 of the June 19th, 2013 planning report.
So moved.
Second.
And discussion. All those in favor? Carried. Now, we have no special reports, no bylaws, so we'll move on to new business, and that's on page 39, and that would be haste funding request from June 5th agenda, and the recommendations, the town of Comox submit an application for funding to Healthy Communities Capacity Building Fund for $5,000 for the active travel of school Comox Valley Initiative.
So moved.
Second.
And discussion.
I'd just like to say I'm really pleased that we can be part of this Comox Valley project in conjunction with the school board, and that we are doing it without affecting our budget by sponsoring the application. And it's a wonderful project, HASTE, for our kids, the health of our kids, the health of our environment, the decongestion of our roads. So, and it really makes a difference that we're all contributing to making this move forward and happen. So it's great.
Anybody else? You?
Just compliment our staff for moving on that so quickly and getting the application ready. So appreciate that.
Thank you, but thanks also go to James and his group that helped put the application together.
Oh, man. Anyone else? All those in favor? Carried. We're not going to lose one more from the crowd, are we? No. Empty enough. Page 47, Made in Comox Economic Development Plan. That the Made in Comox Economic Development Plan prepared for by Comox Valley Economic Development Society be received. I know it says adopted in your agenda, but Richard asked that we receive it so that we could get just a little more flexibility with it.
Move receipt.
Second.
And discussion. Barbara?
Yeah, I think it's great, and I just wondered if, Richard, if there's any ideas at this stage on priorities of actions to move forward on.
That's what we're in the current process of reviewing as to how we can fit some of these priorities within our work plans for this year, as well as what we can roll out to next year. We already have I've had some discussions with Maple Ridge in terms of their programs related to downtown vitalization that we want to investigate a little further. So that will be an aspect that will fit into this program as well. So there'll be more information coming back to council, and we're going to be working with EDS to roll out what priorities we're going to work on first.
And I was at an EDS executive meeting today, and they asked the exact same question. So there you go. So everybody seems to be on the same page. Anyone else? Discussion? All those in favor? Carried. So we'll move on to permit applications with outstanding items. And the recommendation is that the following February 16th, 2011 Council Resolution number 11.037 be rescinded.
Move rescind. Move that we rescind that. It's a lot to read out.
Well, the other part of this is that we actually give them the other one too. Right?
Yeah.
So did you want to just move the entire recommendation there?
All five of them? Or
Well,
six of them?
just number one,
Yeah, so I'll move.
because you're just rescinding, but the second half of that is to issue the that the permit be issued, right?
Well, that's
Actually-
item number 2. So I think we have to rescind it first.
If you wish, you can, in one motion, if council's in support, do all 6, because it is a collective.
Yeah, they're all the same.
Okay.
So I would move items 1 to 6,
Okay,
that we rescind, adopt, and rescind, adopt.
we got a seconder for that?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor? Carried. That made it easy.
Well, there was a lot of reading there.
I wasn't looking forward to reading all that, I can tell you. So that would move us on to correspondence, and that would get us to page 59, Nautical Days 4-mile race. And someone wanted to make a recommendation on that? We need to either receive or do something with it.
I move that the recommendation be received.
And approved?
And approved.
Yep.
Receive that. I'll second that.
Second, okay, discussion? All those in favor? Carried. And Yana Simon Cycle Yana Ride, same. You want to make the motion to receive and approve?
And approved, and it's so moved. So moved.
Second.
Second, and discussion? All those in favor? Carried. And then I think we could probably do the next set of letters all together.
I move we receive items C through L.
We got a seconder,
Second.
and discussion?
And just, Alice Bullen said a really pertinent thing as she left, that everything has to have a beginning, and that today is perhaps the beginning of the Vegas property again.
Tom?
I'm just wondering, through the mayor to staff, some of the letter writers were confused as to the difference between Shakeside and Baybrook, and the fact that Lackline left the money for Shakeside, not for Baybrook, correct? Have they been informed of that, that we can't arbitrarily move that money over because it was legally bequeathed to us for one specific purpose?
With this council motion to receive, we will be responding to each of these letters.
Okay.
And we'll advise them or clarify those that seem to be confusing the two properties.
Okay.
Excellent.
And the dealing with the money that was bequeathed to this?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
And just because the press is going to report on this, it would be, are you guys clear on how that all worked? Okay, fair enough. Okay, so any other discussion? Hugh?
Your worship, we had a late, your acting worship.
Yep.
We had a late letter submitted by Dick Stubbs, and I'm wondering if that might be, if we can receive that as well.
Sure. You want to
It's
add
all
that,
in the
you
package.
would want to just amend that motion and add that letter as well?
I would move that amendment.
Okay,
One second.
second, okay, all those in favor of the amendment? Carried. And any other discussion? All those in favor? Carried. And we'll move on to reports from council. We'll start with Councillor Swift.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, since we last met, I attended the regional district meeting as an onlooker and supporter of hospice that was doing a presentation there, but of course we had to stay for the entire meeting, so it was my first entire regional district meeting, and I found it to be quite interesting, actually. I also attended the North Island Hospital Project Community Information Session, attended the Hilbert Board meeting, and they're getting geared up for their summer series and Kids Day this weekend. I went to the BC Shellfish Seafood Dinner that was held on the Hilbert property Friday night. It was great. And yesterday I attended the presentation at Highland School where the students from the International Baccalaureate program had done a study of the health of Brooklyn Creek and the water quality. And they actually were comparing it to a similar study that had been done about 10 years ago. So that was interesting. And for the most part, the creek is in reasonable shape, except for a fecal coliform count at Dogwood. So I don't know if there's anything that we can explore there, sewer-wise.
That's coming from Sims Farm.
No, it isn't.
No?
Apparently not, because they test further up. But anyways, so anyway, it was really interesting. It was really exciting to see the kids doing such real life work in the community.
Nice. Barbara?
Yes, so I attended the Cycling Task Force meeting and the Environmental Council meeting, and where there was strong support for keeping Langs Baybrook House. I represented the town at the Head Start program graduation at the Comox Big House, and it was pretty neat. I didn't realize that they were little kids. So all these little children that will be going into kindergarten in the fall have been through this Head Start program, and it was quite inspiring. I also attended the Food Connections, which was funded by VIHA. It was a conference on food, and there was some really good speakers on the value of locally grown food, farmers markets, and the public health implications, and working towards a food charter. I was also at the BC Shellfish Festival Chef's Dinner, which along with Councillor Swift, and it makes me really grateful to live in such an amazing part of the world. I couldn't think of anywhere more wonderful to be treated. And I was also at the Highland School presentation on the testing of Brooklyn Creek, and it was definitely in the middle section that there was a spike in the fecal coliform count, and they also had somebody from DFO there who said he'd also noted this point, so if we could pass that on to the engineer. There was some thought that maybe there was some cross-piping that's just to check if we can do anything about it.
Absolutely.
New responsibility. And then I just came from the ADICC executive meeting in Nanaimo, and there was actually one of the members had attended a legal session, a legal workshop, so there was some interesting information on conflict of interest and what's come out of the recent Supreme Court of Canada case. And the very strong recommendation was, until this is rectified, and I think the province, maybe as early as when they resit in summer, if they do that, we'll be dealing with it. But to make sure that we appoint as liaisons to boards rather than directors, that we appoint non-voting liaisons. It doesn't affect statutory requirements to be on a board like 911 and the library board, but anything else to get it out of the current legislation difficulty is to make sure that we are liaisons and non-voting liaisons. And that is it. Thank you.
Councillor Hugh?
Yes, I just remembered a while back, Councillor Grant and myself attended a meeting with the Consular Director of Taiwan at the Crown Island Golf Course, and had some interesting conversations there from both ends, both international students and opportunities here. June 8th, Elevate the Arts events in Courtenay, including at the Comox Valley Art Gallery, a student presentation there along with Councillor Fletcher. The Comox Valley Concert Band performance at Marina Park on June 9th, and it was a tremendous turnout down here at the park, and I've asked them to make this an annual event, and we may be coming to council to consider that. I know they would like to consider it, and we had a great turnout, particularly of seniors like myself enjoying the music. June 10th, the School District 71 Teacher Retirement Function tried to get around on behalf of the town, and thanks to the teachers that teach in Comox schools. June 12th, attended a Stanhagen Theatre Community Justice event, sponsored workshop on youth as caregivers. And interesting facts there, they estimate that 12% of youth are acting as primary or secondary caregivers for either parents or for grandparents, and they need support. And they were exploring ways to support them with our community services and resources. Attended a student Mark Isbald art show at the Pearlesque Gallery, and certainly compliment the staff there for continuing to show student artwork. It rotates. One year it has Mark Isbald, the next year Highland and Comox schools there, and some tremendous artwork on display there. June 15th, went to the Vancouver Island Regional Library Board meeting in Nanaimo. And yesterday attended the Glacier View Alternate School Awards Assembly. Tried to congratulate as many as the Comox students that are attending the alternate school there. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Tom.
Last week I attended an RD Committee of the Whole meeting, as well as a Sports Commission meeting, and I chaired the Water Committee meeting last week. I also attended a Hospital Board meeting up in Campbell River, and Solid Waste Management Board meeting in Campbell River. And last night I had the pleasure, along with Acting Mayor Grant, to cook hot dogs for some Special Olympians, and we had a great time. That's my report.
And great hot dogs, if there is such a thing. Thank you. And I also attended the Elevate the Arts when it was on in Courtney. I also went to the Air Cadet graduation ceremony where our crew here from CFB Comox came in second. So the awards were all brought out, and there had been a issue with the judging, and they actually came in first. So they were quite thrilled because they'd been given the medals some weeks before and found out that they'd actually won the thing. So it was quite a great ceremony. I quite enjoyed it. I also went to Economic Development Executive meeting where conflict of interest also came up at our meeting. It was thought at that meeting that if your organization is actually funding the other organization, that's where you tend to get yourself into problems. Whereas with that organization anyway, the funding tends to come from the regional district, but it's changing as we speak, and there's court cases ongoing, appeals, and all of that. So it's a little bit up in the air at the moment. The Economic Development AGM is tomorrow too, so I'll be going to that. And in that, they asked us if we could get our priorities list organized for our Comox plan. So we're well underway on that. And that's all I've got. So media questions? No? Questions from the public? Nobody? Motion to adjourn. They're voting with their feet. We're going to go.